Let's get going. So RSE means relationships and sex education. So this webinar really is designed to help you know exactly what's going to be taught to your children in year 3 or year 4. Really, the reason we do it is because that knowledge is really helpful to you, hopefully, because it means if they come home with any questions, you'll feel kind of better equipped to answer those questions, having had a chance to think about some of the key content that's being taught. So relationships and sex education, RSE is what I'll refer to. What we're going to do is share some of our curriculum aims, our objectives really for RSE with you in year 3 and year 4. And I'm joined by Mrs. Hall, who's going to help with that bit. And we'll share, kind of an overview of the objectives that are taught and some examples of the resources that we use so you can see the types of things that the children will be looking at. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat as we go. But also at the end of the session, we will unmute, we will stop sharing the screen and you'll be able to shout any questions out that you might have. And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. So a few key points to get started. Relationships education is statutory. That means that when we teach children about relationships, every child has to do it. They're kind of entitled to that teaching as part of the national curriculum. And the DfE guidance that schools are kind of bound to deliver says that our focus should be on fundamentally on how we build positive relationships and what positive relationships look like. And that refers to friendships or families, relationships with children and adults. And that's really important because we want all children to know what a healthy relationship is. And they've already had lots of that over the year so far. A lot of PSHE teaching is about just that, what a healthy relationship looks like. Now, sex education is not statutory. That means children do not have to learn it, but it is highly recommended that schools teach it at an age-appropriate level in primary schools. Now, it's important for you to know you do have a right to withdraw your children from sex education that is above and beyond what is included in the science curriculum, which I'll come on to in a moment. But to summarize this slide, relationships education is statutory, so all children have to do it. Sex education is not statutory, but recommended. Okay. Now, I'm going to send out some more information that will include the guidance from the DfE. In case you're interested, you can follow the link on the slideshow, and that will help you learn, what schools are bound to do. That kind of has all of the information there. I'm also going to send out some information about the Jigsaw scheme of work, which I'll come on to shortly. That will all come out in an email along with a recording of this video so that you can watch back and see it again if you need to. Now, Jigsaw is our scheme of work for teaching PSHE, and that includes the relationships and sex education. And we do that all year through different puzzle pieces, which are all on this overview that you'll be shared. And there's a different puzzle piece for each half term. Now, the reason we're doing this webinar now is because the sex education comes under Changing Me, which always happens in the second part of the summer term. So we will always have these webinars at this point, just to give you a heads up about the kind of things that you can expect your child to be taught. And we're going to email out this booklet and the overview so that you can kind of see all of the things that are taught across the school, which I think is really handy. So at this point, I'm going to pass over to Mrs. Hall, who's going to talk more about year 3 and year 4 specifically. Switch place. You can grab that spinny chair.
Okay, good morning. So this will sort of highlight the differences and how it progresses from year 3 to year 4. So in year 3, we basically look at the differences between babies and adults, starting with animals, and how a baby animal looks different to its parent. And then we move on to humans as well. And we focus on some of the physical changes that happen to humans during puberty and why those changes happen. So to have babies, and how the baby develops in the uterus and what it needs. So that's sort of in a nutshell what year 3 covers. Then year 4 goes on to look at why you get your characteristics from your parents, because you're made from a little bit of both of them. And then you look at the male and female internal and external parts and labeling them and looking at the right names and things like that. And then year 4 goes into more detail on the female parts and looks at menstruation and things like that, because it's an appropriate time when it might be happening soon for some of the girls. These are some of the resources that we use. These are the exact pictures that the children will see. So this is used in year 3 just to show them how the baby grows inside the mother. And then these are some cards we look at, some changes that are going to happen to them. And we would talk through those changes and the vocabulary and things like that, and how they feel about them. And these again are pictures that are used in year 3 just to show how you change from a child through puberty, growing into a young adult. And these are used in both year 3 and 4. So when they come to year 4, they've seen these pictures before. We've spoken through what they are and read through everything, and used the correct vocabulary is one of the important things that we focus on, especially in year 3. And this again is for year 3 and year 4. We just talk about a baby is made by where a sperm comes into contact with an egg. We don't talk about how or any of that. That comes later on, I think, in upper Key Stage 2. And then year 4, this is where they focus on the female and look at again the correct vocabulary for the different parts and what will happen and why it will happen. And this is year 4 as well, so that the girls are prepared for when it happens to them, and so the boys understand what is going on.
Fabulous. Swap back. Oh, sorry. So hopefully that gives you a really clear idea of exactly what is taught in year 3 and year 4, and the kind of questions the children might come home with, and the kind of language as well that will be used when teaching the children. Now, before we teach children anything really, we'll ask them lots of questions about what they already know. So in year 4, they build on what they've learned in year 3. In year 3, they build on what they've learned in year 2. So we'd always start by, really just sort of trying to find out where the children are at the moment, and then we know what we need to teach next and how we might need to change it if they don't know as much as we thought they may do. You can help at home by pre-teaching. So now some of the vocabulary that we'll be using, now some of the concepts that we'll be covering. So it might be that you think that your child might need to address that with you first, and give them and help them feel equipped when they come to learning it in school. Obviously, feel free to do that. You may think actually it's better for the child to learn that in school, and then you can answer any questions at home that they might come home with, and now you're prepared to do that because you know what's being taught. If we see that any child hasn't quite grasped it in class when it's taught, then what we would do is go back over it with them, go back over the key vocabulary or reteach some of the key content so that they really get it. And if we feel that you can be helpful addressing any of that content at home, then we would of course let you know. We do have further support and resources such as what's on the screen here. If you feel that your child might need something extra, or after it's taught you feel that they have questions that you can't answer, then you can email us or you can email Mrs. Anning directly using the email address that's on the screen there. And then she will be able to point you to further advice or further resources that you can use to help your child further. Mrs. Anning's a bit of an expert around this area, so if you've got any questions, she would be happy to help. Some top tips on the screen. These come from Jigsaw themselves. Really what they recommend is the stuff that you'll be really good at doing anyway, which is being really honest with your children when they have questions, in an age appropriate way, answering their questions. You know your child best, and so what kind of things that they would respond well to. Children are naturally curious, and that's a good thing, so we should celebrate their curiosity and make sure that we keep those lines of communication open, which I think is especially important as they get older. They need to know that there's someone they can talk to around these topics that they might see as embarrassing, And obviously, the more we can enjoy it and the more we can, you know, remove those taboos around these topics, the more likely it is that they will speak to us when they have something on their mind. And you'd much rather they were getting that information from you or from us here at school than getting misinformation from their peers, which is why it's really important to address these topics at this point, you know, because they need the correct information in an age appropriate way. And I think Jigsaw is a really brilliant scheme. It's really clear. It gives us a real consistency across the school. It's really age appropriate, and it helps us to make sure that all children are equipped with that important knowledge around what happens to us as we change and as we grow older. Now, I did say earlier that if you want to opt your child out, you can. We're not going to be teaching this week. That's just to give you time to reflect on these webinars. If you do wish to opt your child out of all or a part of the sex education content that we're teaching, then you need to email info@grovelands.surrey.sch.uk, the info address, stating what it is you want to opt them out of, and obviously who they are. And then we can pass that on to the teacher so that they're aware of, you know, what the child cannot take part in. But I really would recommend that they do, because I think it's really important that they have that knowledge. Their peers are going to get it. And so I think it's important that all of the children get it at the same time. If you do have any further concerns, though, email us and we'll be happy to respond to those. Right, I'm going to stop sharing the screen now and give you this opportunity to unmute and ask any questions that you might have. Okay, Mrs. Hall, I'm going to assume that you have covered that content really well, so nobody has any questions. So thank you, Mrs. Hall, for sharing those objectives with us and really the kind of the detail of what's taught. If you do have any further questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We can send you additional resources. We can hopefully put your mind at rest if you still have any questions to answer. And keep an eye out for that email with additional resources too. That will be coming your way in the next couple of days. Have a really good day, everyone, and we'll see you really soon.